Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Shades of Entrepreneurship. This is your host, Mr. Gabriel Flores. Today, I'm here with Mr. Passive Michael Hoffmann. Michael, how are we doing?
Gabriel, fired up to be here.
I'm stoked, guys. This is another fellow local Oregonian. He's actually down there in Eugene, Oregon, where the currently #1 Oregon Ducks are sitting atop the college football rankings. Don't be mad if you are not in the Pacific Northwest, folks. But we are very excited about our Ducks here in Oregon. Even if you're not a Duck fan, we are very excited about it. But enough about the Ducks. Michael, go ahead and introduce yourself. Who is Michael Hoffmann? Tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, a little bit about me is I'm the classic entrepreneur, got my hands in a lot of different things. Originally grew up in the Midwest, went out to the Silicon Valley down in the Bay to help start a startup back in 2014, and then moved up here to Oregon right before COVID, and the rest is history.
So what was that? What was that 2014 startup? Tell me a little bit about that one.
Yeah, it was a startup in sports, actually, speaking of Oregon. But it was all around injury analytics, injury prevention, prediction type software based. We were literally founded right across the street from Facebook. So there was a lot of that energy around there to build software and scale it. And it was a fun experience being in the Bay for so long, especially coming from rural Iowa. So it was definitely out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, so let's talk about good old Iowa, the Hawkeyes out there. So tell me how did you transition? Like, kind of how did you get from you said rural Iowa to Silicon Valley?
Yeah. Yeah, so my background growing up, grew up in a town of like 500, classic farm. I had some cows, showed 4-H, FFA, that whole thing, and my dad ran his own vet clinic, so kind of got exposed to the whole, entrepreneurial side of things, and did the whole lemonade stand growing up. Worked at the McDonald's franchise. That was the only gas station in like a 20-minute radius, and also a fast food station. So, kind of did some signs early on that pointed me down this path, and then came across a founder of a company at a conference in exercise science, strength and conditioning, which is what I went to college to study. And he's like, hey, I think I was employee number 5. Do you want to move out to California, into the Bay, the most expensive part of the world? Palo Alto, and I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And that was 2014, and it was just a whole different experience being out there, and then brought it up to Oregon.
I love it, and I got to tell you, folks, I graduated. I'm from Oregon, Mount Angel, Oregon, small German community.
Yeah.
I think I had about 30 people in my graduating class. Yeah, I think we're just a little bit bigger than you. I think we're about that 2,500, maybe about that time of population. But to your point, we didn't have a street light. We actually had no big mom and pop shops there in Mount Angel. Still, currently, there are no like large brands. It's all mom and pop individual entrepreneur businesses there. And very similar to you, traffic was essentially getting stuck behind livestock crossing the road or a
Yeah.
trailer, you know. So tell me about some of your experiences. How did you tell me about your experience? You mentioned being in Iowa, being on the farm, and then you kind of taking that experience and taking it to Silicon Valley. Tell me about some of that transition, the things that you learned there in the fields of Iowa, and how did that translate over to Silicon Valley?
Yeah. By the way, Mount Angel, you didn't even give your little Oktoberfest a
I
shout
know.
on
Hey,
air.
next
I'm
year,
kind
folks, I'll be there. Oktoberfest. Come on down. Check out the
of.
boys at the beer house, and I'll give them a shout out. So if you're in the Mount Angel, go to the beer house, or if you're in Silverton, check out the Gallon House. There you go, boys.
I love it. That's awesome. Yeah. So back to, Iowa, I think the thing that I learned is work ethic there. The cows, the pigs, they're not going to feed themselves, whether it's Christmas Day or, Monday getting back into the office. That's the beauty of farming, is it's got to get done. And so you learn work ethic, and treating people the right way. The whole Midwest values is something I'm very passionate about, and integrity. So that was something I brought out to Silicon Valley. That was I think very advantageous having been grown up around those kind of values. You didn't have to coach work ethic with me when I got out there.
Yeah, one thing I recently did this past week, the episode will probably be airing a little bit later, but I was recently able to host the Oregon Entrepreneurship Network Awards. And one of the things I talked about, their theme was tradition meets innovation. And so I talked about work in the fields of Mount Angel. And I'll tell you folks, individuals that are within that Marion County region, there's a probably strong probability those individuals have worked on the field at some point in their life. They probably have done some type of field work, either mowing the lawns or baling hay, or picking berries, pulling plants, moving pipe. They're all sorts of things. Now tell us about your current venture. You mentioned you kind of moved from Silicon Valley to Portland. So tell us a little bit more about what you're doing specifically, and then tell us about that transition up north.
Yeah, so we moved up here for my wife's job. We had met in the Bay, and she was actually at Stanford at the time. She took a job at Oregon, so we moved up here, and I went remote, and got into some different things. Invested in a short-term rental and over in Bend, and did some different things. Started a vending route here in Eugene. So yeah, just kind of that classic entrepreneur, trying different things and see what sticks type of mindset.
So tell us about some of the, because you're Mr. Passive. So tell us about some of your passive incomes, the one you currently have.
Yeah, so I currently have a little bit of everything. We got a short-term rental that is managed third party, down in Florida, near Clearwater Beach. We got and then we're doing a real estate development, which I'm just kind of like the silent, you could say, in Corvallis, building multiple units on one plot of land, so more of a value add on some land. And then we got vending routes in 4 different cities across the country, and Bitcoin mining, e-commerce store. So all kinds of things where I really like to roll up my sleeves, get involved initially, and then figure out how do we build the operations and automate and delegate to, I want to remove myself from the business as quick as possible.
What's interesting is you're kind of in a lot of different verticals, right? So let's talk a little bit
Yeah.
about risk, because I think entrepreneurship in itself, it has its fair share of risk. So how do you kind of view risk when you're kind of looking at a new venture, and then how do you determine what, this is a venture I'm willing to take the risk on?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, Gabriel. I think for me, I think it's a little bit of, it's just like your portfolio, right? You got your higher risk, higher reward type items, and then you got your lower risk, lower reward type items. So, if we use vending, for example, the thing that really intrigued me about that was I could get the cash flow per month, the equivalent of what I would be getting for my rentals, and I wouldn't have to put the down payment of like a house to get a machine. Like I could and use the cash flow to pay it off. So for me, it was a little bit lower risk. Like this development we're doing in Corvallis is definitely more risk, but the upside's a lot more. So I just kind of look at it as like having kind of a balanced portfolio.
Smart. And like, and that's a good point too. Like, I think some people, when they think of investments, they tend to go kind of deep into a specific area, right? Whether it's real estate or maybe the stock market. Kind of tell me about your philosophy in regards to the diversification of your portfolio. What are there specific industries you look at, or you just kind of look at them all and see what's available?
Yeah, I kind of like to look at them all and see what's available, and then wherever we're having success, really try to double down.
Now let's talk about that success. Which current passive venture have you gone through uh, has been the most successful, and then which one has been the most difficult?
Ooh. That's a good one. Probably the most successful is we bought a plot of land actually by Autzen Stadium where we kind of little did a little zoning hack. We did a house and an ADU on paper, but we fenced them off as in separate driveways as two houses. So when you pulled up to the lot of land, you would have thought it was two lots because there was two houses side by side and fenced off and separately and all of that. But on paper with the city and permits and stuff, it was a house and an ADU. So we did that development. That was really fun. And got an off the market offer for that that actually was too good to pass up. And so that's kind of what led me to this new Corvallis thing is kind of similar concept. It was a residential with one house on it, but the land is absolutely massive, and we think we can build eight on there. So on the same lot. So that's what we're striving to do. But I think one that didn't really work out was, during COVID, I really got into like the e-commerce stores and doing the whole like FBA, drop shipping, all of that, and realized real quick, that your store is only as good as what Amazon or Facebook or whatever Walmart online e-commerce thinks of it. So it's kind of like, when Trump was banned from Twitter, if you get suspended from Amazon, good luck
Yeah.
trying to keep that train of income going.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Kind of talk a little bit about, I would love to know your experience with that specific area about the algorithms. How did you, because it's very much like an algorithm game, right? Tell me about your experience with it.
Oh, it's a total algorithm game, and the whole like nowadays I forget what I always get them confused, but like you got to get in the yeah, I think to me, my experience was looking back on it, a little probably too much risk. You're really trying to play the guessing game and timing things. I remember one time we hit the jackpot with some ice melt in our drop shipping store because there was a massive winter storm that went through the Midwest and the Northeast, and it was total luck. It was like trying to time the market with the
Yeah.
right products, and that that really got us into the algorithm. But I wish I could say we were smart, but we didn't look at the weather and realize this huge storm was coming through. And yeah, it's just to me it was a little too much risk.
Yeah, and like folks, like we're not trying to like say don't go into the fulfillment section with Amazon by any means, but we are probably saying like be mindful because I think the amount of work that actually goes into being working with the Amazon fulfillment center, even though they do have all the things located there, you're still the marketer, right? And you're still the salesperson. You still have to go build that brand awareness. You got to create your sales funnel and marketing funnel and get people aware of your product and service. And then you kind of start having to do the algorithm game, right? Because as Michael mentioned, it really is about what the consumers think. I keep telling people, if you think you're a thought leader, we'll put your thoughts out in the market, and the market will tell you what they think. And that tends to go well, or sometimes it doesn't.
You're spot on. Yeah, that was very well said. 100%.
So what would you say now? You kind of talked about the easy stuff and this. Now let's talk about what you're currently doing. I would love to kind of talk about you mentioned, did you bring the company up from the Bay Area to Portland? Are you still working in that startup as well?
No, so I transitioned out about a year and a half ago, or maybe it was 2 years ago. Actually, it was 2 years ago, November. So I transitioned out. That was the classic, like you transition out, they ask you to stay on as a consultant. So I stayed on as a consultant until actually last month, just part time, couple hours a month type of thing. But I went all in on really kind of flipping this whole archaic vending industry on its head with what I call luxury unattended retail. So you think about going through the airport and there's the Hudson bookstore
Yep.
that's literally got no employees. And you can even at the Moda Center, I remember going to a game last year and I went and got a bottle of water and,
Yep.
a fast food sandwich and I didn't talk to anyone. You just put your phone on there, the gates open, and you grab your items and you walk out and the cameras track you. So we do a ton of AI camera based micro markets that we help people with unattended retail solutions. And I help people across the country build their quote unquote routes wherever they live.
Wow. And it's kind of funny you mentioned I was just in the Seattle airport the other day, went through a Hudson, and sure enough, there's the register, and nobody to talk to, but I just, scan my thing and keep going. It's very convenient. But and then you mentioned Moda Center too. Yeah, they even have it for the beers, and it's very interesting. They have a gate right there, and once you pay, the gates will open up and let you out. That's such a really unique concept. What were some of the challenges did you guys face in that specific vertical? With the AI kind of making sure. What were some of the things that you kind of had to make sure that you kind of got down, and what are the things you're like, wow, that was really cool, we learned that?
Yeah, so anytime you're dealing with humans in tech, there's always going to be human error. So for us, a lot of it was like when you install these things, you got to build out what's called planogram. So, okay, if this is a shelf, what's in the top right of the shelf? Is it toothpaste? Is it a hot dog? Is it a bag of chips or a soda? And so you build out your planogram so the AI cameras, whenever, Gabriel comes through that gate to grab something off that shelf, it's tracking it through there and charging appropriately. And then the other side of it too is we do a lot of stuff in college towns, and those gates aren't going to prevent the 2 a.m. drunk college kid from jumping over them and grabbing something. So we do a lot of like AI coolers where the door's actually locked, and then you have to put your credit card or debit card or Apple Pay on the door. Then it unlocks, and then you can grab everything. So it kind of prevents the theft that people might think about with some of these types of solutions.
That's one thing you just mentioned that was very interesting, was the planning concept, right? Like really making sure that AI knows where, I'm assuming, like the size and the shape of the products that are on and does that also kind of help it track? And then like, how does it track it, and how does it kind of dictate the, like, making sure the prices remain the same and things of that nature?
Yeah, so it uses a lot of them will use like computer vision tracking, and you're spot on when you basically it knows like, okay, this shelf is 2 feet wide and this box of popcorn is 6 inches. So now we have 18 inches left of space to, this 2 inch Snickers, 5 inch hot dog, whatever. So yeah, it will know based on what you grab. It also tracks if you put something back and grab something else. So that computation, it's crazy with AI.
And I imagine this is probably also helping like operations and logistics, because like, hey, now I'm identifying how much quantity I have left in my back stocks, and it's kind of, wow, really
Yeah,
is making it a
yes.
lot easier.
Yeah, so we have over 50 locations, and just from my phone, I mean, I can immediately go in and see, okay, one, like what's the revenue of a location? Two, what's the inventory of a location? Three, like what's running low? Like all those things are being tracked and consolidated.
What would you say are some of the unique insights that you have learned by tracking the information? Like, for example, like what is the most purchased item, or things like that? What insights have you learned?
Yeah, so for me, it's this. I went kind of down this path inadvertently because I was trying to. I was going through the airport one time, and I actually missed a flight because of a delay in Denver at 11 p.m. and there was nothing open. There was no Hudson open. There was no Chick-fil-A open. There was nothing open. So I went to the vending machine. I paid $5 for a bottle of water. I knew that water was like 60 cents at Costco. And some guy was making whatever 400% off of me, and he was clearly at home sleeping, and I'm the one busting my ASS for my day job. So long story short, that's kind of what got me into it. But it was really with my background with human performance and health. I've been on this mission to kind of get after the now, as I guess people call it, the Make America Healthy Again, but really trying to get after this obesity issue. And so initially when I started out, with my first machines, it was Diet Coke and Snickers, but we're really meeting people in the middle and trying to kind of get past that mentality. And we're doing it. I mean, in these machines, you can do whatever you want. Hard boiled eggs, you
Yeah.
can do, fresh protein packets, you can do sandwiches, salads. So it's not just, okay, it's an M&Ms and a Diet Coke that comes down a vending motor that we're used to.
Yeah, you mentioned that like the obesity and the diabetes. A good former guest, Verda, go folks, check it out. The shadesofE.com. Sami Inkinen talks about their kind of foray into that area too, especially with all the new medications that are coming out. The weight loss drugs. It seems to be kind of front and center again. The Americans' health, right, and like trying to tame a lot of that. Now that you kind of mentioned, a couple of months ago, you kind of ended your consulting with the team. So what does Michael's kind of future look like? What are you getting into now?
Yeah, I want to do more of these AI focused unattended retail. If you are following anything in the economy, like Walgreens just is closing down 1,200 stores, CVS is closing down a ton, Dollar Tree, etc. So now is there's no better time. People are going to pay for convenience, and people are going to they don't want to spend $30 on a DoorDash or so. I'm doubling down on how do we make things more convenient? Do we put these AI micro marts in like employee break rooms and teachers lounges? Because at the end of the day, it's just such a modern approach to what old school vending was.
Yeah, I agree. And like, a lot of people don't know this, but most of these stores, restaurants, they kind of look at their location on how much revenue do they make on a per square foot basis.
Mhm.
So when you're going out there and if you're not selling, if you have a 20, let's say Walgreens is probably like what 3,600, almost like 4,500 square feet roughly. That's not counting the back storage. That's probably talking about straight retail space. And if you do that and you're not selling, a lot of items, but yet you still have 20 employees working, 8-hour shifts every day, that operational cost will tend to eat into that profitability pretty quickly. And again, it's based off of that revenue per square foot. Now, I'm not saying folks like should go and relieve their frontline employees and just go automation, go straight to AI. But what I am saying is when you start to scale your business, think about the long overall needs of it as well. Like, do you really need the location to be big enough to also store all of your back store items, right? Or can you have that on an off-site location that's specifically dry and cold storage? So just kind of think about those things, because if you're able to kind of create a more efficient, small, compact location, like Michael's trying to hope to create, I also see the value and the revenue probability in that kind of venture.
Yeah. Well, and with kind of you would be able to understand this, but you think of like these medical offices where they have the coffee shop in the lobby that right now is open till 10 or 11 a.m. because they can't
Yep.
find enough employees to keep it open all day. And so these nurses, you got oncology on the first floor, x-rays on the second floor, whatever on, or on the third floor, and like all these people are like, well, what do we do, where do we go? And we don't have time to leave, and we don't want to pay $30 to DoorDash something here. So I have like a vision someday where you got your micro market or whatever downstairs, and it's kind of like Instacart to get it there, or Instacart alerts you, and then you got the little robot that drives around and takes it up to wherever your office is and drops it off for you and goes back down to the micro marts, now just like the last mile, like Uber.
Yeah, that is actually yeah, we'll talk more about that offline, because now you got me really, now you got my ears poking up, because again, I work in the healthcare industry, folks, been in it for almost, over 2 decades now. And one of the things that's very interesting, one, healthcare never sleeps. We're open 24/7.
Mhm.
If it's a hospital, outpatient clinic, sure, they have their hours of operations. But we get patients in throughout all hours of the night. And one of the things that's sometimes difficult with hospitals is specifically with patients. When they come in and our grill's already closed. It's like, oh, I'm sorry you came in at 9 o'clock at night. Our grill just closed at 8:30. It doesn't open up again until 5 in the morning. So that's a huge window where our
Yeah.
patients and their guests, right? Because I'm Latino, so if we're coming to the hospital, I'm bringing the whole family, right? We're coming like 30 deep, and so it's like I want to make sure those people feel cared for and about as well. So I do believe there is a big need for it, especially when you look at it in that perspective, right? Again, we're not trying to replace employees, but we are trying to provide an additional service that helps keep the employees that are continuously working on those off hours supported, right?
Absolutely. And think about hospitals, and they're so big, and like the ER is down this wing and you take a left and a right. And like those family members that are there with you, they're not going to know how to even get to the cafeteria, let alone is the cafeteria even open. And so like you can do like these, what I would call like pop-ups in different parts of the wings. We do a ton of these on the medical offices that are next to the hospital, because all those nurses and docs don't want to walk over to the hospital and wait in line at the grill
Yep.
for their lunch, because now they're not going to be back in time for their appointment after lunch. So it's just like at the end of the day, it comes back to convenience.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking of the docs in the OR. Like,
Yeah.
you have to scrub out and scrub back in, and you have a patient on the table, the case is going, you really can't really leave that floor sometimes, in that unit. And so being close to that location, cafeterias on the third floor, Michael, you're talking about large. If anybody's seen the Oregon Health Science University campus in Portland, I mean, we have a dang tram that connects our buildings because we're so huge,
Yeah.
so it's a big place. So Michael, tell me about, you talked about Mr. Passive and you're trying to continue to build it. How are you building this brand, the AI specific brand? How do you build new clients? How do you kind of bring them into your funnel?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. We do have like an in-house cold call center. So I used to outsource a lot of our like lead gen and kind of off-market leads through cold call centers, and it just didn't get it wasn't cost effective. So I brought it in-house. We do a lot of lead gen through just conversations. The great thing now with this kind of unattended retail space is it's such a new concept, and all they know is like the Coke machine. Like, oh yeah, I can just go down to the Coke machine and enter in the codes, and I got 5 different drink selections. Where now it's like, okay, well, you get this whole market. Do you want sandwiches? Do you want Cokes? Like, do you want, in the hospital's case, we could do like NyQuil, DayQuil, Tylenol, Advil. Like at the end of the day, AI cameras, you just set it the planogram to whatever's in this thing. So for me, it's more just kind of elevating what people currently have as a solution, and just trying to coach people out in our community across the country on how to position and do the same thing we're doing here in Oregon.
Yeah, I love it. Now, what would you say? What are some items that maybe could not, like? I'm not trying to envision. I'm trying to think of what items maybe couldn't go in there because, as you mentioned, you can have a door with a lock, right? Open it up. What
Yeah.
items wouldn't you put in there?
Um, I
Or are there
mean,
any
you're
items? Can you just put everything?
yeah, you can put anything. I mean, we do everything from toilet paper to paper towels to, people hear vending and they think, oh, it's just like snacks and maybe some fresh food. And but like in our apartment complexes, again, a lot of these places, they don't want them to walk over to the CVS at 2 in the morning to get, I don't know, condoms, or if it's a hotel, a phone charger or a laptop charger. So you can really do anything, and you're starting to see this even in airports. Like when you walk through the Seattle airport now, there's like Lego
Yep.
machines and just like these random, which isn't a bad idea because I have 2 kids. I would probably pay $70 for a Lego set to keep them occupied on a 6 hour flight across
Yeah.
the country. That's a great ROI. So,
Very much so.
um, yeah, I think it's kind of the world's your oyster when it comes to those type of things. And it's more what's the environment. Like I come back to like, okay, in urgent care, if they don't want to go over to get to the Walgreens, like why not just put all the over the counter stuff in the machine next to the snacks and drinks?
Yeah, I'm starting to think like the benefit of it from like so many different avenues because again, very much like entrepreneurship folks, you're gonna have to provide a different message for each target audience, and you have to know what those needs are, right? So, like Michael was
Exactly.
mentioning, if you're in the urgent care ED, having those over-the-counter medications available, so those individuals don't have to go to the pharmacy, or if you're in a OR, maybe having some food and beverages, things that are very easy to consume very quickly, give you a boost of protein, boost of energy, maybe some electrolytes, right? Versus the hotel.
Yeah.
Who hasn't
Yeah.
forgotten their phone charger?
Yeah. Well, and Gabriel, this is at the end of the day, it's understanding your customer and understanding like that. All 3 of those examples are perfect examples. Like I think of hotels. Hotels already have a grab and go. Where hotels have friction is you go grab those items. What do you have to do? You have to go wait in line behind someone checking
Yes.
in. And you're like, I just have this bottle of water. Why am I waiting 20 minutes to say, hey, can you throw that on room 504? Like,
Yep.
let's just throw a kiosk in the grab and go so you can just go swipe your barcode, pay it with your room charge, and you're on your way. It's
Oh
all
man,
reducing friction.
it's funny you mentioned that. I was thinking I was mentioning right before we got on the air. I was down in Medford, Oregon. It's about 3.5 hours south of here, folks. I was at the Hilton, and that's same thing happened. It's like 11 o'clock at night. Got done from a dinner, from work dinner, and I was grabbing a bottle of water and some M&Ms. I'm like, I'm down here for 20 minutes for a bottle of water and M&Ms. Just put it on 219. I'm going to go back to bed. I'm tired. I just want some water and
Yeah.
a quick,
Yeah.
quick sugar rush. But so let's talk about now the implementation. So maybe there's one of your clients listening that's interested in having this implemented in their hospital or their building or maybe with their organization. What is the cost of implementation? And then what can they kind of generally expect, like when that ROI will kick in?
Yeah, so if we're talking, let's say someone on the call here is like, "Hey, our YMCA, I go work out every morning. Would be perfect to put something in the lobby at the Y." So if you're going there, first you're positioning yourself as an amenity, and then if the YMCA is like, "Hey, yeah, put a micro market in the lobby here." So when you talk costs, the great thing about this is it's very similar to the automobile industry in that all these manufacturers are gonna say, all right, Gabriel, do you want to finance it or do you want to pay for it up front? So if you pay for it up front, you're probably looking at, let's say, 8 to 10 grand. If you finance it, you're looking at, let's say, 180 bucks a month over 60 months. So let's just go down the path of we're going to finance it. So that location would probably do around, our average locations do around 1,500 to 2,500 bucks a month in revenue. So that location, you're probably going by there twice a week. Probably takes a half hour to stock it. Let's say an hour with drive time and all of that. Another hour a week of getting your product, and so you're in it 3 hours a week, and so of that, let's say 2 grand for simple math, your profits are probably around 50 to 55% if you're doing it yourself. If you're like me, where it's like, okay, I learned it. Now I want to hire a stalker and operator at 20 or 25 bucks an hour to go do all of that. Your margins might be down to 40% after kind of all in. So that's a typical way to do it. I personally finance all my machines and then I try to pay them off in the first year with cash flow.
Smart, smart. And now, is there, so for example, the healthcare industry might be a little bit more unique, right? Where they're also trying to create their own revenue. Is there also models where you actually sell off the AI software and then, you know, I guess it's very similar, right? The hospital now becomes the fulfiller, right? They become the supplier of the food and they have their own employees, right?
Yeah, they could. I mean, absolutely. I think what you're starting to see in the market right now is employees are a headache for these people. And so they'd rather outsource it. A great example is probably that Hilton in Medford. That market the grab and go at the Hilton probably had a lot of empty items. Like right now, kind of the hot button in hotels is like, how do we outsource things? Like we want to cut staff at the local level. Like, why do we need 20 staff if we can get by with 10 and centralize a call center for check-in, check-out questions, etc. So actually a lot of these locations are trying to outsource a lot of these operations. So it's kind of a perfect storm.
Yeah, because I imagine, the initial cost, I think you said is 8 to 10K, right? Or something similar to that, or maybe a little north
Yeah.
of that, depending on the size, right? But I imagine the cost of an employee plus benefits, that's basically what, maybe a couple months of the year getting a return on an investment back pretty quickly.
Yeah. In fact, so I have a friend that runs a CrossFit gym here in Eugene, and he's like, "Hey, can you just come by and give me some feedback?" So he has post workout at this CrossFit gym, he has a refrigerator with a bunch of energy drinks, shakes, etc., water, and then he has supplements up on the wall, and it's a total honor system. So people come and go, they write down if they grabbed a water. A lot of people forget. And he literally was doing the math. He's like, okay, if I put in one smart machine, let's say, I think they're like $5,500. If I put in one smart machine, that's $160 financing payment over 60 months, or sorry, $130. Anyway, he's like, that's 5 hours of if I put an employee at the front desk monitoring this cooler that people are literally grabbing their water. He's like, that's 5 hours a month of he's basically viewing this AI cooler as his front desk
Yeah.
receptionist for
Yeah.
this product. I'm like, that's a brilliant business case.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And again, I'm thinking about the healthcare world. Um, the the amount of, I would say, energy spent working night shift is astronomical. I don't think people understand it. I worked night shift for a couple of years in the ED as well, and it's a lot. It wears on your body quite a bit, and especially if you're, in the food and industry, some of those workers aren't getting paid the best. Now, granted, our union for Oregon Health Science University did a very good job about helping those employees, making sure they get some differential pay for those shifts. But still, the wear and tear on your body, no amount of money, I don't think would ever compensate for sometimes the wear and tear on your body that those shifts take. And so, thinking about from a health perspective of an employee as well, having those options, it could also be a benefit for the overall health of their employee.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, what advice, you've been doing this, you've been doing a few different entrepreneurial adventures. What advice would you have for an aspiring entrepreneur that's listening?
You just gotta start. There's no perfect time. There's no perfect um book that's going to lay it out for you. You just gotta kind of roll up your sleeves and jump in. And that's why I was actually joking before this Zoom. Like, I'm not a good operations guy. Like, I'm a visionary, but like operations is where I struggle. Like, if we talk like the EOS mindset, I'm not an integrator. But Fridays are always super stressful for me because it's like you got to do payroll, you got to close out the books, you got to do all the like back end stuff that I am just terrible at. But like, that's part of entrepreneurship. I also don't have a boss, and I can do what I want when I want. And there's that side of it. And for me, it's all about freedom. Like, time is the number one currency. And yeah, I want to be a present dad. Like, that's what drives me every day, is with two young girls. So I think for me, you just got to start with entrepreneurship and be curious and be persistent, because it's not easy.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's not easy. It's a lot of long hours, and I would say my enrichment from the whole process, right? My enjoyment is similar to yours. The being able to remove myself from this desk at around 5 o'clock at night, go upstairs, sit down with my wife and two little girls. I got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and eat dinner. No TV, no music, and you're just chat with the kids. And I every day I'm asking my 4-year-old, hey, how was school today? What projects did you do? Did you guys eat inside or outside? Just having those conversations, building that rapport with them, because this is everything we do is for them, right? I always look at my goal, right, is to help build generational wealth and establish it. So if you go check out latinofounder.com, you'll learn about the nonprofit. But really, all of the money I'm trying to make is so my kids can have a better life moving forward. My parents made sure we felt rich. They did a lot of things that made us feel rich. I remember one year at Christmas, we all had bikes, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And I was telling one of the former guests, I was like, I never actually jumped on a plane until I was 17 years old. That was the first time I ever took a flight ever in my
Oh my
entire life,
gosh.
And so, and now my kid is like 1 year old and we're flying over to Missouri to see the in-laws. And so it's like the very drastically different, but at the same time, it's, the building the generational wealth is really important, and trying to establish that in entrepreneurship, creating passive incomes, that's one way to do it. Sometimes it's not for everybody. It is a lot of hard work. Won't lie. I'm with Michael. I'm not an operations guy. I'm the visionary. I'll create a strategic plan for you. I'll create a roadmap for you to kind of help you get from point A to point B, and I'll help you create tactics and define those tactics with KPIs. But once it kind of gets to the operational efficiency and integration, I love to kind of hand that off to somebody else. So who
Yeah.
else can help me
Yeah.
get there?
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's very, very well said.
So, Michael, now folks that might be interested, maybe learning about you, maybe they want to connect with you, maybe they want to purchase this product. How do they connect to you online? Where do they find you at?
Yeah, so Definitely, I'm an open book on social media. You can go to, I think my handle on, I think it's X now, but it's Mr. Passive. Instagram, same thing. Uh, YouTube, etc. You can find me on there. I'm very passionate about my mindset with entrepreneurship is very similar to like Mark Cuban, and like I don't believe in patents and keeping all my secrets. So I share all my knowledge for folks openly, and just want to be a resource because the more you can impact other people, like you're doing with a lot of your stuff. I'm a huge believer in that. So yeah, definitely feel free to reach out on Twitter, Instagram, or whatever social media channel you guys prefer.
Perfect. Again, folks, I'm very much the same way. Check out theshadesofE.com. There's a lot of blog posts. In fact, we'll have a blog post about this conversation with Michael, kind of pulling out some tips and some insights from the conversation. We'll also have the transcription of this conversation on theshadesofE.com. So please make sure you just subscribe to that because I am also a firm believer in sharing best practices. My goal is to help you avoid the landmines. I always tell folks, don't be afraid of sharing your idea, because if somebody wanted to do that idea, they'd be doing it already. It's not easy.
Mhm.
It's not easy to get successful. It's not easy to find success. Everybody talks about, one hit wonders, but nobody talks about the hours and songs and albums that were released before that one song hit. And so there's a lot of work that goes into it. As I mentioned, I'm not trying to discourage anybody, but it's not for everyone. So it's okay to share those ideas and share those ideas in people within the market and the vertical you're interested in going into. They might have some insights of landmines to avoid, or partners to identify, collaborators to think about. There's people out there that are willing to be a mentor to you to help you along your entrepreneurial journey. You just kind of have to ask. Like Michael said, you kind of have to do it. You kind of have to put one foot forward and jump out there. It's scary sometimes. You kind of jump out there, but it's fun. There's nothing more funner than entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like riding a bike. You just got to get going.
Yeah, you're gonna fall a few times, but
Yeah, you're gonna fall.
once you're able to hit that Papa Willie, it's pretty cool. Because and then that's actually a great analogy of entrepreneurship, where it's like there's going to be times where you're going to have to pedal, and you're going to have to pedal really hard, and there's other times you're coasting down a hill.
100%.
And it's always different. It's always different. Now, Michael, is there anything you want to say to the audience before we leave?
No, I think the number one thing that I come back to is don't be afraid to be professionally persistent. Like I think humans, if we look at it from a sales lens, like you and I have done before, humans buy from humans. They don't just buy the best product a lot of times, and a lot of times, like I mean, I think back to where I bought my car, where I got my iPhone, where I got this or that is like the sales rep that was the most persistent. Like, so don't be afraid to be persistent. Don't be afraid to, it just drives me nuts when people are like, oh, I need to network and I'm waiting for them to email me back. Well, like email them again, provide value. Like people want to help people. That's why we're human. So persistence to me is always a game changer.
Yes. And you know what, Michael? I absolutely love what you said. Provide value. Folks, if you're going to ask,
Mhm.
if you're coming with a request, make sure it's of value. So again, my call to action for you guys is subscribe to the Shades of Entrepreneurship newsletter by visiting the Shades of E. And I hope you find value from these conversations. Again, these are individuals who have lived, experienced, have the successes, the failures, the trials and tribulations of entrepreneurship, and they're providing their insights and expertise for free. And then I'm summarizing it for you in a blog post. And then we have a transcription. So if you can't hear very well, you can read it. I'm trying to provide every option available for you to succeed in this ecosystem, right, of entrepreneurship, because there's a lot to do.
I love that. Absolutely.
Well, Michael, thank you again so much for joining the show. For those folks that are listening, please subscribe to the Shades of E by visiting theshadesofE.com. You can find us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and then all other podcast serving stations. You can also find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and TikTok at the Shades of E. Thank you and have a great night.